And we found a new hint water. Or you found it. I drank it.
Yeah, I totally did. It's called Georgia Peach.
Y'all would just...
It's so good.
There's no way it doesn't have sugar in it.
It's too sweet, right?
It is.
Because they make a peach.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, why would I
Not
get...
the same as the Georgia peach.
No, I was like, why would they make a Georgia peach if they already make a peach? Well, I know why. So
Georgia.
it's sweet.
It is.
And it's
just
not water.
Like sweet, overly sweet, but it tastes like you're biting into a peach. Like the juiciest peach you've ever tasted.
Yes.
It's like
it is.
so good.
It is.
Yeah.
It's the strongest flavor I've ever tasted in a hint water.
Yeah.
I like the green apple and the grape too. Those are like my top 3 with the peach.
It's so funny because we usually have different drink tastes.
Yeah.
And but we both love the Georgia peach.
Yeah.
I love the raspberry. I don't know that you're a fan.
Yeah. Not a fan. I just don't feel like I can really taste much.
I don't know if I've tried the grape.
Oh, I'll bring you one.
Okay.
Because I have to order them this specifically.
Okay, maybe that's why I haven't tasted
Yeah, they
it.
don't sell them at the store we usually
But
get them
I love
at.
the raspberry and I love the cherry.
Oh yeah. I don't like either one of those.
Weirdo.
Yeah.
Weirdo.
Yeah, I'm the weird one.
We have just a different flavor profile.
Yeah. But it kind of works because if we get a variety pack of something, then usually we like down the
Split.
middle. Yeah.
So it works. It works very well. So don't go anywhere. Today we are talking about moving beyond pain. And it is the last Wednesday of the month. So in addition to that, we're having the healing meeting right after. If Tu will drop the RSVP link, if you want to go to the healing meeting, everybody can go. All people are welcome. There's no cost to it, but you do have to RSVP. I say this all the time because we used to post the links publicly, but then someone has to ruin it for everybody. We had some crazy people log on and we're saying very creepy, rude things.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
So now we always do RSVP so that you have to do that to get the link to go to the meeting.
Yeah.
But in the healing meeting, we'll be talking about moving beyond the pain, and we kind of tried to focus on pain this month. It sounds weird to say that we focused on pain, but gosh, pain is such a huge issue.
Well, we're all trying to avoid it,
lives.
so it is good to focus on it because we're all trying not to.
And what's funny is when people come in, they really perceive their problem as the pain. And if you are one of the people that think that pain is the issue, it's not. It really is how we respond to pain that makes the biggest difference in our life.
Yeah.
Because most people will try to avoid it. And if you try to avoid something, it doesn't really work out too well for you. So we've been trying to talk about pain a little bit this month. And man, it's hard to see people in pain. It's hard for ourselves to be in pain. But if we're taught that, hey, we can grow through this pain, then we don't have to avoid it so much. Because when you do avoid it, sweep it under the rug. And there's some phrases that people kind of use when they're avoiding pain, right? They'll say things like, that's in the past. That's my funny one. That's one of my favorites. Because it's not, if you're a person that says, oh, that's in the past, but your past is showing up in your present, it's not really in the past. But a lot of times we think that in the past means if I just block it out of my mind and don't think about it, then it can't possibly affect my life.
Right.
Not true.
Right.
Not true. Because ideally, yes, it is in the past. And you've processed through it. And when you've processed through it, then it doesn't affect your life. But most of the times it will show up in your life, right?
Yes.
And when it shows up in your life, it usually is in inopportune times that it does that. And ways that it can show up in your life, it shows up in your relationships. You know, like if you've been hurt before, so you avoid relationships, or you isolate, or you push people away, that is your pain being in your present, because the very thing that you want the most, you'll end up pushing away.
Yeah.
And, people do it in different ways. Like, we always laugh around here, like if somebody is a stage 5 clinger, right? Like, they're just like needy Evie, just like, oh my gosh, I need this. And like, just gets very anxious and very insecure. That is no different than somebody who is dramatically avoidant. Now, it just manifests in different ways. It looks different ways, but both are relationship killers. And it's very off-putting, whether you have a stage 5 clinger or whether you have somebody that is completely avoidant. Who wants to be in a relationship with that?
Right.
Because there's no connection for either side of that spectrum. So we've talked a little bit about pain. And next month, I believe we're going to talk about spiritual gifts.
Yes.
And so pretty excited about that. So in May, we're going to go into spiritual gifts. And on our workshop, it'll be Discovering Your Spiritual Gifts, our spiritual growth workshop in May. So excited about next month, talking about spiritual gifts. So moving beyond pain, that's what we're talking about today. And I've got 10 points here that I really want to challenge you with and challenge your thinking, because sometimes we get stuck in the pain and it becomes a comfort. We, even in like counseling and discipleship and growth groups and things like that, what begins to happen is being in pain and your issues and your problems somehow become your identity, which is crazy, right?
That's true.
Because it's like, there's a movie, and I don't remember its appropriateness or not, but it's an old movie. If you ever get to see it, watch it. It's called, and there's an actor in there that I don't care for his politics at all, but what you gonna do? So the movie is called Stuart Saves His Family. And in there, it's hilarious because it's like an exaggerated caricature of somebody who is has the therapy speak, right? That they become so ingrained in the recovery lifestyle that they miss the point of recovery. And we don't want to do that. And you don't want to do that. Gosh, why do we want to grow emotionally? Why do we want to deal with this stuff? Because it helps us grow spiritually. If I am avoidant in my relationships here, like horizontally, then I'm going to be avoidant in my relationships vertically. So we just want to work through things so that we can show up for our relationships as the person that God created us to be, so we can feel comfortable. So when you begin to think about, are you stuck in your pain? Are you kind of beginning to roll around in it and say, "Whoa, this is my identity"? No one really thinks that they do that, but we hear people all the time. Like, if you can't have a conversation with somebody and sound like a real person instead of, my boundary and my growth and this and that, and like, who talks like that? We don't talk like that.
No, we
right?
don't. We don't.
We don't.
No,
Christina, did you properly adhere to my boundary that I set? Like, we don't go around talking like that. And it's kind of like, as a Christian, if we talk Christianese, like, it's off-putting. If you talk therapies, like, it's off-putting.
Yeah.
Just be real. And everybody struggles. Everybody's broken. It's not so much about whether you're broken or not. What it is how you respond to your brokenness. Only God can love you to wholeness. And you're not going to be able to make yourself whole. You're not going to be able to make other people whole. And when I say that, you are already whole, but we collect hurts and wounds down here, and we just don't want those to be the focus of our life, and we don't want it to be the defining our identity, but at the same time, you can't sweep it under the rug. You have to deal with it. You have to process it. And I do believe that we're meant to have a growth mindset. And in having a growth mindset, what do? And that's not just like therapies talk. That's a lifestyle. But being in that lifestyle, it shouldn't you shouldn't exclude other people. A lot of times I think we use therapy and boundaries to reject people and to isolate ourselves instead of like really using it for what it's supposed to be. I want to grow to the maximum amount that I can grow. And by that, I mean that I want to see myself as God sees me. I don't want to see myself how the world sees me. I want to challenge myself to live in such a way where I can live with complete abandonment in just how God feels about me and how God thinks about me and what his picture is of me, and be able to receive the fullness of everything that he has for me. But if we cannot move beyond our pain, we're going to have some trouble with that.
Yeah.
So kind of, you have to decide, are you stuck? Are you stuck in examining your pain so much? Now, hear me. It's so funny. Some people would be like, what? That's exactly what y'all do. We do that. We do help people through trauma and through pain, but we help them through it. We don't want them to stay and just roll around in it and never have any outcome from it. The whole goal is freedom. And in that, we want you to be free and experience the freedom that Jesus Christ paid for your freedom. And it's available to you. So when you think about processing your pain, there does come a time when you go through the grieving cycle and you're mad and you're sad and you're bargaining and you're in shock and you're just trying to figure out, but you pop out on the other side of that with wisdom. And as you begin to gain wisdom, you gain perspective on your life, and you gain perspective about the events in your life that caused you trauma and that caused you pain. You don't want to just stay in that. So let's talk about moving beyond the pain. First of all, I want you to ask, am I stuck? Are you stuck? And it's like, wow, my whole identity has become around, am I miserable? And I am miserable, and finding a way to figure out, why am I so miserable, right? But that's when you get stuck in your pain, you don't see things with any kind of perspective at all. You begin to use that as a way to torture yourself.
Oh, yeah.
How many people do we know that they don't like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Absolutely nothing except the way that you're thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
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 And I mean, I hate to say that it's easy to move beyond pain, but it really is. It's a simple formula, right?
It is.
But we have to begin, and that's one of my points here, so I won't go into that, but do we like to be miserable? Do we like to hang on to these things? We kind of do sometimes. So moving beyond pain, these are some things that you're going to have to enact in your life and you're going to have to accomplish. Point one is stop trying to change your life externally. And we talk about that all the time here. It's one of the first things that we try to teach people. What's interesting is if I feel uncomfortable, then I want somebody else to change. We were just talking about it earlier today. If I feel uncomfortable, then I need to get my friend to change. I need to get my husband to change. I need to get my job to change. We begin to look outside of ourselves and see that as the solution to what's going on inside of us. What's going on inside of you is a you problem. It's a you issue. And I hate to even call it a problem, but it's something that you have to deal with. And it's crazy because if you have a feeling, like a lot of times we'll say to ourselves, you made me feel this way. Like even in trying to understand what's going on inside, we assign outside value to it. You made me mad. You did this. You did that. And we do a lot of blaming. Or if that doesn't work, then we just turn around and we blame and we dump on ourselves. But when you begin to try to change your life externally, your life implodes. Because things you can control and things you can't. I cannot control what other people are doing. And it is the least effective way to how to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so what do we want to do? We want to begin to recognize when we're doing that. We were, like I said, we were just talking about earlier how a lot of times people want the people in their life to change.
Yes.
And they're like, think about it. When's the last time you listened to a sermon and you didn't think about who needed to hear that?
Yeah.
That's
true.
That's like a, you read a book. Oh my gosh, so-and-so needs to read this. You hear a sermon. So-and-so needs to listen to this. Why do they need to listen to it?
That's so funny.
They are responsible for what's going on inside of them and dealing with that. But instead, like, we want other people to change to make our life easier.
Yes. That's so I just was talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how frustrated are these people that are trying to manage their lives externally?
Through other people's behavior.
Yeah.
Yes.
Never works. We have a whole
Not
video
one time.
on it. What we always give to our clients.
Yep. Never works. Only leaves you frustrated. Yeah.
Because it's literally something that you can't control.
Yeah.
Like, let me try to get my husband to change. A lot of times people get very, very focused on their spouses. I can't change my spouse.
Right.
Sorry, honey. And why should we? Because the problem is here. If I am bothered by something, then it fixes with me. It doesn't, it fixes with me, fixes with him, and hear me, I'm not talking about deal breaker behavior.
Right.
Deal breaker behavior, it is way different. It was funny, even just as like a side note, we were talking about conflict resolution earlier, and this is the craziest thing. The hard thing about teaching conflict resolution is, for one, every situation is so different. But what people don't understand, a lot of times people will come in and there will be what I would call deal breaker behavior. And they're like, how do we resolve this? You don't resolve abuse.
Yeah.
It doesn't resolve.
Right.
Like it's like you can't deal with abuse by doing conflict resolution, because usually when somebody's abusing somebody or somebody's in an abusive situation, it's like, we'll just stop that. Like, stop the abuse. And it's a cycle, and there's other ways that you have to address it and deal with it. So just to make it clear, we're talking about, like, anytime we talk about an issue, it's like, it can't be deal breaking behavior, because if it is, then it's crazy. So we were talking about conflict resolution, and conflict resolution, honestly, between two adults is not that difficult.
Right.
They'll go into difficult situations, and there are, what I would say, you have to set ground rules about that. But most people are trying to externally fix deal breaking behavior. And I think does this lead into this leads into my third one. So I won't say too much about that, because I'm going to pick that up in my third point here. But understand that things you can control and things you can't. If I'm trying to control something that I can't control, then it's external. You cannot control somebody else's behavior. You cannot make somebody else change. You cannot make it rain. You cannot make the sun shine. Things that, if you base your life and your happiness and your identity off of things that you don't have any power over, you are going to be a miserable person. And to move beyond pain, you have to come to this realization, and you have to surrender to the idea that you can no longer live your life externally. You have to, what's going to regulate you? You and God. Like, it's not going to be other things. Other people are living their own life.
So are you saying that if I can just only go internal, I'm never going to experience pain?
No. You will be uncomfortable. And that's really the reason why we go external.
Yeah.
Because we think that if I can get Johnny to be nice to me, then all my pain will go away.
Yeah.
No. If I can get so-and-so, we hear it all the time from single people. If I could get so-and-so to like me, everything in my life will change. No, it won't.
Right.
You'll just be miserable and you'll have Johnny. Like, right?
Yes.
And then you probably will break up because, like, it's in here. And, we talk about it too. Like, sometimes we talk about like geographic location cures.
Yeah.
No, you can move all you want. You take yourself with you. You can break up with somebody. Guess what? You take yourself into your next relationship and you take your problems. And that's where we get these cycles. People are like, why do I do the same thing again and again and again? Because the issues are internal.
Yeah.
I know it feels like it's external, and I'm not saying that there's not some external issues, but they can't be solved by trying to work through it externally. You have to work through it here.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be rejected, don't date people that reject you. Don't have people like that in your life.
Yeah.
If you have a problem with people pleasing, you gotta work through that. If you have abandonment issues, you got to work through that. If you have rejection issues, you've got to work through that. Nobody can make you feel secure. Nobody can make you feel not rejected. Nobody can make you not feel abandoned if you haven't dealt with it internally. And I guess that's all I'm going to say on that right now.
That's good.
Because it is huge, isn't
It
it?
is. It
It's
is.
huge. That's one of the reasons why we first teach that when people come in here.
That's right.
Okay.
You can't move forward if you don't get that down.
You can't.
Yeah.
Because you will always be looking for a solution in the wrong place.
Right.
It's like millions of years ago, looking for love in all the wrong places. Yes, that's what we do.
And talk about a distraction from your pain to be focused on
Other people.
external
Yes.
stuff. I mean,
Like
what
this person.
what a great avoidant tactic.
I know. And you just will never deal with what's going on in here when you're defocused.
Yeah.
Like that. And hear me, it feels real. It feels
Yes.
like this person is causing my pain, and if they just stop, I'll be okay. My life will be better.
Yeah.
No. Because you break up with them, you divorce them, you get rid of them, you quit, you go to another job, and you take yourself.
Yep.
And
And then
then
you pick up another one.
Then you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
how did this happen again?
Yeah.
I thought that I escaped this reality, but no, it's just again.
Yeah.
So point 2 is how do we move beyond pain? We have to come to accept that we have to let people be upset with us. How much of your life do you spend, how much of your energy, and this is also like an external thing, but this is specific. Can you let people be upset with you? Can you go into a conversation and try to not talk somebody out of being upset with you? Imagine you're trying to communicate with somebody, and your goal in that communication is that they not be mad at you.
Yeah. But I feel so guilty. That's what I hear.
I know. I
I
don't
know.
want to be mean.
Yeah. I know. I don't want them to feel this way. I don't want them to feel
I
that
know.
way.
Not your responsibility.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like, it is so hard to teach people to let people be upset.
Yeah.
Be upset. I'm not talking about be abusive.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
again, we're not talking about deal breaker behavior. Like, we can't, Johnny can't punch Sally. Like, that's not cool. That's not okay. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when if I feel uncomfortable, if somebody's mad at me, that's a me problem, not a them problem. Because I have to say, okay, ideally in communication, when somebody gets upset, you want to get curious about it. You want to say, wow, I'm so sorry. Tell me more about that. Like, preserve the friendship, preserve the relationship. But many times when you find out people are upset with you, we try to talk them out of being upset. We get defensive, we get hostile. We say, you can't be mad at me because blah, blah, blah. Or they say, man, I feel like blah, blah. Like, I don't know why you feel like that. I'm not doing that. Like, all of our efforts, many times, I say all, many of our efforts in conversation, in communication, is trying to talk somebody out of how they feel. Which, if we begin to realize that I'm not responsible for other people's feelings,
Yeah.
Hear me, I'm responsible for showing up as the best version of myself, or at least trying to. And you want to be a decent human being, right? And how you treat people and how you interact with people. But people are going to get upset. Why? Because they're looking through their lens, they're looking through their expectations. It's about them. In Christina's world, it's Christina.
Yep. It's all about me.
But come on over to my world, and it's all about Angie. Yeah, these are my experiences. Who has a right to tell me about my experiences, right? And we were joking earlier. I was like, "Ooh, Christina, you grouchy."
I'm not. I don't feel grouchy.
But like we can joke and we can talk about that and we can go, "Ooh."
Yeah.
But like imagine if we had a conversation where I just said, "You're grouchy."
Yeah.
You're grouchy.
I'd be like,
You'd be like,
I'm not a chair.
That's right. Because we don't put things on other people. We can talk about things, but so many people have conversations where if I feel you're grouchy, then you're grouchy.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the story. How do I know how you feel inside?
Right.
Right? How do you know really how I feel inside?
Right.
And Christina was like, I think you're projecting on me. But we like to joke about things like that.
We do.
But people live that way.
Yeah.
People are always, I say always, people many, many times don't let other people be upset.
Yeah.
I was listening to a movie and the person who got upset, the person who was around the person that got upset, did an excellent job. And like, pretend like you're upset.
Oh my gosh, I'm just so frustrated and I just don't even want to do this and I don't even know what to do.
And this is what they said to this person.
Oh my gosh.
They said, it's good that you're letting it out.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right? They weren't trying to stop the person. They weren't trying to talk them out of their feelings. But they just said, it's good that you're letting it out.
That's good.
Because
I love that.
I know, because so many times when somebody else feels something uncomfortable, we get uncomfortable. So we try to fix it. We try to make them not feel it.
I'm totally going to use that.
Lord forbid if they direct it towards us.
Yeah.
Like if they're upset with us, then we...
Yeah. That's like...
And that's some...
boop,
like
boop, boop.
we get into some emotional taekwondo kind of jujitsu stuff. Like, get that away from me.
That's right.
And so... Can you just let people be upset with you? It doesn't, whatever somebody's upset with you about, it doesn't define you.
Yeah.
And, it's good for you to be like, is that me? That's why I'll say it's so important who you hang around. Like who you have your walls down with and who you don't have your walls down with. Like you have to be around people that lift you up. You can't be around sabotagers, underminers, takers, and just fully take in everything that they say like it's the gospel.
Yeah.
You just can't
Oh my
do
gosh.
that.
I used to do that.
Yeah, well, we all do. We don't discriminate against, like, these are safe people and these are not safe people.
Right.
So somebody that's not safe comes up and tells you who you are and you're just believing it like it's your best friend.
Yeah.
When what is their
No.
thing? Their thing is they can't bond. They can't be in a relationship with somebody without kind of doing the one-up thing or competing and stuff like that.
Well, let me ask you this, because I just had this question pop in my mind. So maybe somebody else has this question too. Does that feeling of like it's uncomfortable for me to have other people be upset, even whether it's at me or other people or a situation, does that have anything to do with like personality? Like, do some personalities have a harder time with that and some have an easier time with that?
I would definitely say yes. Like we all have, I would say in personalities, we all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. We all have, some people just honestly care more about what people think. But then we also have wounds. And so is it driven by personality? I would say somewhat, but really where the hardcore pain comes from is the wounds that we have.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely. We'll have to do disc again pretty soon.
Oh yeah.
It is. Like I would say, like if you're familiar with disc, or if you're familiar with the temperaments, sanguine and eyes, they really care about what people think about them. And they're prone to, one of their fears, their core fears is rejection. So then they're obviously it's going to be a little bit harder when people are upset. And then S's or phlegmatics, they just want things harmonious. And so when somebody's upset with them, that can be like, ooh, that's uncomfortable to me. And then if you have a wound on top of that, then
double whammy.
Yep, double whammy. Okay, number 3, which I love, and I love this subject. We'll have to do something again on this soon too. I always say that. It's like, oh, I love this. Understand, if you want to learn how to move on beyond pain, understand boundaries. This is, we get this a lot. Somebody will come in and said, I set a boundary and it didn't work. And I would say to that, that's impossible. If you set a correct boundary, that's impossible. Or that falls back on you. Because a boundary, people want to manage, again, external. People want to manage other people's behavior through boundaries. That's not what a boundary is. A boundary is, hey, I don't want to be yelled at. If you begin yelling, I'm going to leave. How does that boundary feel?
Right.
Like people will think that boundary will make that person not yell. No. Again, goes back to things you can control, things you can't control. Boundaries all about is how I'm going to show up. I'm informing you of how I'm going to handle myself in any given situation. It's a boundary.
Yeah.
I need to sing that boundary song. Do you remember that little
boundaries? These are my boundaries. Something like that. It's cute.
A little
It's
boundary.
cute.
Google like kids boundary song.
Yeah.
And it's not about you. It's about me.
Please don't come closer or something. It's really cute.
We'll have to find that one.
Yeah.
But it's a cute song, but the kids song gets it better than most adults. And so, what is it? It's just a boundary. Please don't take it personally.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's not about the other person. And we will do that. We will try to put law on people. We will try to do behavior modification on people because we really think that somehow we're going to change the other person through our boundary. No, that's why it makes me mad when people don't understand about like when people come in and they're like, this should work. How come boundaries don't work? Boundaries do work. You're doing it wrong.
Or you set a boundary and you don't like their reaction. But when you follow through on it.
You cannot set a boundary that you can't
hold.
Yes.
Yeah.
That you can't hold, but that it goes back to internal, external, that you can't control the outcome.
Right.
I have a boundary that it better not rain tomorrow. Like, but people do that with behaviors. Like, you can't yell at me. Like, I'm just going to use yell. Like, people don't like being yelled at. But the only thing you can do is to remove yourself. But people don't like to take ownership of removing themselves. Again, external, they just want the other person to be different and to do different. And then if you do different, then that makes my life easier.
That's right.
So all the boundaries that most people set up really kind of go around that philosophy of the externalization of like, you fix this so I'll feel better, instead of just like, this is how I'm going to handle myself. We joke here at the ministry all the time. Like, people are like, oh, my life is this and this. Well, we'll take over you. I guarantee you, we take over your life for a couple weeks, we can completely change your life. But what would happen when they take their life back over?
They would just reverse everything that we did.
They would. You would. You think that, gosh, if somebody could change my life and then I just take over. No, you would turn it back into the same thing. Because why? Everybody has what they want.
Yeah.
And what we mean by that, people don't like that, but you will go back to what your comfort level is. If your comfort level is, I don't want anybody to be mad at me, then you're going to become a yes person. You're going to become a people pleasing person. But then you know what's going to happen at the end of the day? You're going to be mad. You're going to be resentful, and you're going to be bitter because you're going to be a bitter Betty or a bitter Bobby. Because what happens is you're mad at everybody else because they didn't do your job. You do your job, and you don't have to be a bitter Betty or a bitter Bobby. Right?
Yep.
Boundaries. They aren't what you think. That's a good workshop title. Boundaries aren't what you think they are.
Yeah.
If you're trying to control somebody else's behavior, you're doing it wrong. But if you're saying, hey, this is what I'm doing, and it's not punishment, it's not a threat, this is just like how I'm going to manage myself in any given situation. And it doesn't go from situation to situation. This is a core driving behavior or a core driving boundary that's true in all circumstances. This is how I want to live my life. Boundary: I don't rob banks.
Pretty easy.
It is
for some people.
I just don't do it. Yeah. And so when you set a boundary, understand that's about you, you. My boundaries are about me.
Yeah.
And how I want to interact with society and how I want to interact with people.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people really focus on the external part of setting boundaries. I'm going to set a boundary for this. I'm going to set a boundary towards him, towards her, towards them.
I just spit.
Uh-oh, I just flung my mic. And I really, when you get into the practice of boundaries, you're like, this has nothing to do with other people. This is really just
exciting.
Me setting boundaries with myself. Like, I'm not going to step into their life in that way. I'm not going to interfere I'm not going to try to get them to do this. I'm not, like, it really is really.
If you can't control the outcome, and I don't mean control the other person.
Yeah.
Like, if that's not yours to manage, it's not a boundary. Like, it's all about, I am managing myself.
Yeah.
I am managing my behavior. I am deciding how I'm going to interact with something.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've actually had a conversation where I said, I've never said I'm going to set this boundary. I've never needed to. Like, now I'm not saying I've never had other conversations where I've said, hey, I'm going to adjust my behavior in this way or whatever. So that's also setting a boundary, but rarely have I ever had to actually do that.
Even in, like, I would say, like, when we talk about toxic behavior,
right,
or what I'd call deal breaking behavior, like, people think, okay, like, let's just say infidelity, right? If you cheat, then I'm going to leave you. Like, like, why are we informing people of things that are deal breakers for us that we probably at some point in your relationship defined as deal breaker?
Right.
And not that, we deal with a lot of people that have affairs and infidelities, and there's definitely, you can have a much better relationship afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, you can usually, when things like that show up in your, and I'm not saying that it's right, but there's things going on in the relationship, and a lot of times that's a symptom. And there's ways to deal with that. But if you are in a position where you are perpetually being abused, you're perpetually the same behaviors, the same patterns are going on again and again and again. And each time you act surprised because you set a boundary, like, no, you didn't set a boundary.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody comes up, we've heard this before, they just keep knocking on my door, and they keep coming over.
It's your door.
Call the police.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to do that.
Right.
Okay, so then you don't mind if they knock on your door incessantly and, in the middle of the night and start screaming things.
Yeah.
You want that. No, I don't want that.
Right.
So how are you going to interact with that?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell them not to do it. You're going to tell somebody who's being toxic, somebody that is not rational, you're going to tell them, please don't do that. It's not going to work.
I know.
I
see so many videos, and I'm like, why are you even having a conversation with this person? Like,
it's like, and we talk about this here too. Just like people can be physically drunk, people can be emotionally drunk.
Yeah.
And when somebody's emotionally drunk, you don't talk to emotionally drunk people.
Right.
It's not going to, when they're emotionally offline, when they're not regulated, when they're emotionally drunk, there is no rational conversation to be had.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody is coming over and they don't know how to regulate themselves and they're banging on your door or they're insisting, they're forcing, like, you have to say, the best question you can ask yourself is, why am I putting up with this?
Mm-hmm.
What inside me says that's okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because that'll get you some traction about
Right.
how to deal with that. So we could go on about that forever, but
That's good.
we've got a healing meeting we have
Yes.
to get to.
Yes.
So 4, don't avoid the obstacles in your life. Man, if you want to move on from pain, you can't just, be like, there's nothing happening in my life, like being blind to it,
Mm-hmm.
You have, when things are there and it's an elephant in the room, you can avoid it, but it's usually just going to get larger instead of dealing with it.
Yeah.
If you have a toxic relationship in your life, it's not going to go anywhere but worse.
Mm-hmm.
If you're at a job and you're like, I hate my job, you're probably not going to go to sleep and spontaneously just be like, oh my gosh, I woke up and I love my life. I love this job. Not saying it can't happen,
Yeah.
but it hasn't happened for you yet like that.
I
has
remember
it?
I remember thinking I would like grow out of feeling anxious.
Yeah.
And like I just
Without
thought
doing anything.
Yeah, I just thought as I get older this will get better.
Yeah.
It'll go. No, it only grew. Yeah.
Dang.
I know.
But that's the way, and we as Christians are terrible about it. We will use our Christianity, we will use our relationship with the Lord as a defense mechanism and be like, I just need to be in gratitude and I'll learn to love my job. Like, and that's not untrue, but there's also the truth of, if that's a huge obstacle in your life and it's kind of really bringing you to a point where you're like, maybe I should think about, is this my career path? Maybe God is changing some things in my life and maybe it's time for a change. Like, if we want to ignore something, we'll be like, oh, God's got this. And God does have that. But at the same time, if you're using it as a defense mechanism instead of it really being true and active in your life and you are surrendered,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And then what can you say? If somebody's like, well, God told me, or God, like, you can't
Okay.
say anything. What are you going to say to that? You can say nothing to that because God told them.
That's right.
And so begin to understand that if you have obstacles in your life, you don't have to avoid them. You don't have to avoid the elephant in the room. Okay. 5, practice radical honesty with yourself. We lie to ourselves before we lie to other people. And sometimes if our what we're saying and our behavior don't match up, we're lying to ourselves. There's something off. Like, let's figure out what is off with that.
Yeah.
Now, we have 5 more things, but we're going to talk about them in the healing meeting. If we're talking about things that you like to talk about, then join us for our healing meeting. I know that 2 has put the link in the
comments.
the threads, the comments. But come join us and let's talk about these things on a deeper level. Man, look, 6 through 10. Pretty
Nice.
cool, pretty
Yeah,
good.
pretty good.
So come talk with us about that and really learn how to move on from your pain. Don't get stuck. Don't get stuck, and don't hate your life. Don't be a bitter Betty, a bitter Bobby. You know what I mean? Like, just, you can remove yourself. The Lord wants to bring freedom into your life. And I just want you to hold out your hands and say, I just receive anything that you are pouring out, Lord. And it can change your life. So let's pray us out. And me and Christina will meet you online at the healing meeting. Lord, we just thank you. Lord, we thank you that you give us the ability to move beyond pain. We thank you that you are the leader and the guiding light that just leads us through these these places that we go through, these emotions that we feel, Lord, when we feel overwhelmed or when we feel stressed out or when we don't know what the answer is, we thank you that you're a generous Father that will do what? That will come to us and welcome us and never judges us. That, Lord, that you just bring us strength and you bring us comfort and you bring us acceptance. And you are a gracious Father who loves his children. Thank you, Lord, for being so compassionate when we're in pain. And Lord, thank you for being so compassionate and leading us out of pain. In Jesus' name, amen. See you at the healing meeting. And that's a wrap.